I'd like to have a conversation, a dialogue about the Toronto Police Services. I'd like to hear people's ideas about what we should do about our police force. There were some reports that came out this week about a female cop that had been in the force for 10 years and experienced sexual and racial and religious harassment for many of those years, including sexual inappropriateness for one of her superiors. And her story isn't the only one like this that's come out in recent months about the Toronto Police Force. At the same time, the police force has been saying for years that they will take the initiative to self-reform their large spending and some of the inefficiencies in some of the police work. Now, I'm not one that believes in self-reform when it comes to large organizations. Usually they need to be prodded from the outside. John Tory is sitting on the police board, but seems to be bigger friends with Mark Saunders and the police union head, as is Doug Ford, and no one is making anybody do any of the reforms that are needed. This is the largest line in the city budget here in Toronto. It's over $1.2 billion over the next few years. We're handing cops hundreds of millions of dollars. John Tory has said, "I will give the cops anything they ask for." That is incredibly irresponsible leadership. It's terrible for budgeting. And the problem is, we need to be able to reduce gang activity in particular and violent crime. And the way to do that is by alleviating poverty. And a lot of the programs that help with that, particularly that keep kids engaged in their community and away from gangs and away from violence in our priority communities especially, are through community development specialists, music teachers, sports coaches, after-school programs, childcare. We have experts in all of our communities that do this work, and they do a great job, and they don't do it for a lot of money usually. Meanwhile, we have over 5,000 cops making over $100,000 a year, many of them doing excellent work, and many of them pushing paper or standing beside construction sites while earning that kind of money. Surely we have newcomers here or people of lower income that could stand beside those construction sites. It would lower construction costs for the city, provide other people with jobs, and the cops can continue to make their large salaries, focusing largely on the cop work. So we need reform. We need money out of that police budget. We need an improvement of behavior for a number of cops. We need to force behavior changes from the outside, not letting them self-reform. We always hear complaints from conservative candidates, conservative politicians about unions, greedy unions, and the inefficiencies of unions. Well, let's take a look at the Toronto Police Force. Let's acknowledge the great work that they do, but let's no longer let them self-reform. Let's no longer let them cut their own budget, because they don't. It keeps growing. Let's trim 2% out of the police budget for the next 4 years. Hold back on those increases that they're getting, and let's see what kind of progress we make. Let's measure their performance, and let's do the same with that money that we shift away from the police force and into community programs that prevent gangs and prevent violence and build communities by the experts in that community. Let's measure that activity as well. Let's do that for 4 years, and let's compare. Where is our money better invested?